This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome to the X-Cast, X-Files Podwatch, episode 35, covering Hell Money and Jose Chung's From Outer Space. I'm your host, Zach Moore, and with me is Tanya Hernandez. What's up, Tanya?
Not much. Hello. Nice to be back.
Well, you know, this episode has a great episode, and then has a not-so-great episode, at least from my opinion, but we'll get into it here, Tanya. I don't know how you feel about Hell Money, but Hell Money was written by Jeff Vlaming, directed by Tucker Gates, and aired on March 29th, 1996. So this one, man, you know, the X-Files has a bad reputation when it tries to tackle foreign cultures and how they interact with American culture, and this is like Exhibit A of that. What are your thoughts, Tanya?
I thought it was respectful. I didn't think it was, exploitative or anything like that, like I've seen in other shows. So I thought it was all right. I mean, for an X-Files episode, it when you break it down, it's more of just it's more like a CSI Law and Order type of episode, because there's really nothing supernatural here, just the perception of supernatural forces. So this is more like a straight, whodunit crime drama episode, which is very rare in the X-Files world, because usually it's like Monster of the Week or, aliens. So this was more, it definitely was very different. So maybe that's why it kind of feels like it's not one of the better episodes. But in terms of, respecting Chinese culture and stuff, I didn't find it bad in that sense. I think they've done worse, especially when it comes to the more Hispanic, Mexican, Latin American episodes. Those being of Hispanic descent, those kind of got made me cringe a little here and there. So I don't know. In terms of this one, I thought it was all right. I mean, I didn't think it was bad, in terms of that space.
Yeah, you mentioned Law and Order, and hey, BD Wong is the main guest star here.
Yes,
so
yes,
speaking of Law and Order, he's great, and he's had a kind of meteoric rise to success. He's just a very familiar face these days in movies and TV, isn't he?
I've been a fan of his for years. Oh, every time he's been in something, I've always enjoyed his performances. Especially, I think one of his best showings was like in Oz as the chaplain in that, and he was fantastic in that show. So he's a wonderful actor. So seeing him in there was great. I thought he did a good job in this episode.
Yeah, and I think for me, I kind of zoned in on what his role in the episode was, and that's what kind of rubbed me the wrong way about like how it's like, oh, look at the mystical world of the Orient, for Mulder and Scully, and he's like their guide. There's always that one character who's the guide to this alternative culture for them,
Yeah, but in response to that, I think they recognize that, because he even says that line about, oh, you think just because I'm your interpreter that, I could just magically let you understand everything, and that's the only reason you're using me. So, like, at least, the writers recognize that and actually put that in the character, and saying, like, he's not just like, oh, yeah, let me just interpret everything for you because I speak Chinese, but, like, he trying to explain to them, like, you don't really understand what's going on. And, I can respect that they actually recognize that of the characters, that they can't just come in and just, let's get the Asian guy to talk for us type of thing.
Yeah, that is true. It was more self-aware about this than other episodes have been. That's a great point. And BD Wong, now their only famous guest star, Lucy Liu, is in this. Are you kidding?
Lucy Alexis, I think her middle name was. She had a middle name when it popped up. I was like, what? She got a middle name? That's cool. Yeah, Lucy Liu. One of her first big,
very early role for her.
Big roles before Ally McBeal, where she just became like the breakout star in that show. So
right.
Yeah, it was really cool. That's the one thing about the episode. I love watching these episodes again, because then you see like all these stars that are like huge stars now, they were all in the X-Files. Like, you could just make a whole episode, like a whole podcast about how many stars walked through the X-Files hallways, and made it big, but made their start, in an X-Files episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Reynolds, Jack Black, Bryan Cranston. I mean, the list goes on. So I didn't expect to see Lucy Liu here. It kind of took me by surprise. So, but yeah, this big BD Wong fan, sounds like both of us are, and I did like his struggle in this episode because he was trying to keep a foot in both worlds, and obviously it's revealed that he's deeper into things than we were initially told or think at the beginning of the episode. And I really liked when he goes like full on Jesus, flipping over the tables at the temple at the end of the episode. That was a great moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great that he finally said, enough is enough. And, I guess he had his own motivations as to why he never revealed what was going on. Because again, like you said, you don't understand what it's like, coming into this country, or being an immigrant or a child of an immigrant, and living in this culture and stuff like that. So that was a really nice moment where he said, that's it, I can't do this anymore.
Right. And the game being rigged was a great twist, I think, because I didn't see that coming either on first
yeah
viewing. Well, the end though, I really don't understand the end. Could you help me understand that, Tanya?
So from what I got was that probably, the other actor who's the main antagonist, who I can't recall his name, but again, there's another great actor that I've known since I was a child in one of my favorite movies from the 80s, Big Trouble in Little China. He was the bad guy in that movie too, and he's been in tons of other movies. But of course he gets away, or somehow he's going to get off. But it seems like the shadow organization that still runs this thing pretty much kidnapped BD Wong, and for his punishment for giving up the operation and betraying what he was supposed to he was involved in it. He was paid off to not say anything, look the other way, divert the cops from any of the evidence and things like that. And I guess for his punishment, he got cooked in the oven there, just as a punishment. That's pretty much what I got out of it. So the organization is still around.
I was wondering if they were trying to do like The Village, spoilers for The Village, like, oh, the ghosts are real, they're not real, oh, they're real again. I thought they might have been trying to do something like that at the end, but that's a pretty, I kind of run with that explanation, because at first you're like, oh, wait, were they real? Did they get him? Yeah.
No, I mean, pretty much when you take away from it, there was no like ghosts. They, that's what they used to scare the people, because they are so superstitious, and they are, still based in their traditions, that they believe, yes, there are spirits that can curse us if we don't follow through with, our promises or whatever. But in the end, you just know those were really, because they mentioned in the beginning that Mulder mentions that these deaths like that was happening, it was happening in other cities. So, it's like some kind of, syndicate mob thing going on in other cities that have, heavy populations of Chinese immigrants and stuff like that. So, it's like an organized crime syndicate, basically. So they're, physical, actual people doing this. So they just ended up just kidnapping him, cleaning out his apartment, making it look like he ran off, but actually ended up killing him and, basically destroying the evidence, because he was the one that was supposed to turn state evidence and blow the whole thing open. But now they don't have their evidence anymore. So
right, and you mentioned the game master, who's called the Hard-Faced Man. Not in the episode, but in the classic X-Files mythology, you have the well-manicured man, cigarette-smoking man. Right. He's the Hard-Faced Man. He's played by James Hong. Is the actor's name?
Yes.
Yeah, he was great. Yes. And he really gave off like a cigarette smoking man vibe the whole episode. And then he lights a cigarette,
and he actually smoked a cigarette. Yeah,
so good.
I thought that I never noticed that, and I was rewatching it the other day for this, and I was like, oh man, they even made him smoke a cigarette. Like, wow, like they were just trying to make some kind of crazy parallel, But yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought that was a cool little nod to the smoking man. The really evil guy always has to have a cigarette.
All right, Tanya, well, it's time to talk about Jose Chung's From Outer Space, written by Darren Morgan, directed by Rob Bowman, and aired on April 12th, 1996. Now, this is my favorite episode of The X-Files. What about you?
It is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. My absolute top favorite is Bad Blood. That's my favorite episode of The X-Files ever, but this is one of my top 10 favorite episodes, definitely.
Yep, for me, it does just a masterful job explaining what's behind the mythology. Even though it's in a humorous way, it completely makes sense. Like you could really take this as canon. If to use a word like, oh, the government is dressing up as gray aliens, and those are all those guys are fake, and then all the other aliens, like the black oil and the monster that we see in this episode, right? Like those are all real aliens, and I really like that conceit. And absurd as it all seems, that's all part of the plan, and it's a brilliant way to cover up what's really going on. It makes perfect sense to me. So
right, yeah, it's like the double cover up type of thing, with the it cover, giving the false memories and stuff like that. And I mean, they've kind of hinted at that throughout the season, but this one pretty much says, okay, so the government is doing these alien abductions for whatever reason and planting these false memories in there, but there are actual aliens still, because they end up kidnapping the fake aliens, which I thought was pretty hilarious. That stop motion
creature,
yeah, Lord Kimbo, was a really, really funny way to show like what
this is
real,
not happening.
Yeah,
this is not happening.
Yeah, it was just a really funny way to show that real alien. Although I'm a little disappointed that we have not seen that alien ever again.
Well, there's still hope in
because apparently
season 11.
He exists.
There's still hope.
I know, that's true.
Hashtag Lord Kimbo,
knows?
season 11. Well, since this is Darren Morgan episode, it kind of exists in its own, like the Darren Morgan canon of the X-Files. Mulder is always portrayed a certain way and whatnot.
Right.
But, it doesn't really contradict anything more than, the general mythology contradicts itself anyway. So you can find your way and find a way to fit it in to the explanations of everything. And I do love that. And of course, some great guest appearances here by Alex Trebek and Jesse Ventura as the Men in Black. So good, right?
Yeah. I would like to know, like, that session where they were deciding, okay, who's going to play the Men in Black? Like, where did they get the idea? Like, I always wanted Jesse Ventura and Alex Trebek to be in an episode. Hey, how about we make them the Men in Black? Like, I obviously this part couldn't have been written for them, but how do you just like say, oh, you know what? Yeah, they'll be perfect. I guess, the absurdity of it goes with the absurdity of the whole storyline, of this alien abduction between these two kids. So I guess it just works.
Yeah, and it's not really Alex Trebek or Jesse Ventura. They're using it, from my interpretation, right? They're using the hypnotism to, make you think you saw him, which will make your story sound even more absurd. Again, playing into the cover-up also brilliantly. So, and then Jose Chung, a great character, right? Charles Nelson Riley, just a hilarious character actor. I mean, and he returns in an episode of Millennium as well. He's one of those characters that is kind of like annoying, but in a charming way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I thought he had a great line that, Scully asks him, why would you do a book about this? And he's like, honestly, it's about money. Like, at the end of the day, he just wants to make a buck, so he doesn't even care about like how crazy the story sounds. As long as he makes it sound good, he'll do it. He doesn't, he's not really invested in the whole conspiracy or anything like that. It was funny to see Scully like be a fangirl, one, that was really awesome. And then two, of sci-fi, or, and it was like, wait a minute, or I guess crime drama or something, but you wouldn't think like Scully would be a fan of that, or say, that was the greatest book you ever written, or, like it was very interesting to see that part of, that side of Scully, in the episode. I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed that.
They say that inconsistency of character is character, right? Because every person just doesn't fit. Like in real life, every person just doesn't fit into these categories. Like, oh, well, I like these 4 things, so therefore I will not like these 2 things. So when you have characters like Scully, who might have a weird interest like that, it takes you by surprise, but then it kind of makes her a more 3-dimensional character at the same time. She's not always the Dr. Wagner Figner Mulder's face, but like, no, Mulder, this is all BS. And then the framing device, the conversation between Scully and Jose Chung, in order to tell the story that way was a great framing device, because then you see them telling the story, and like you have like the other police officers saying, "Oh, that blankety blank hole," and right.
And she's like, "He didn't really say that," and he's like, "Oh, I'm familiar with him."
Oh,
yeah, I do like that they put that in the episode, that instead of making him just come up with saying heck or damn, like they just put blank when like he really is cursing. I thought it was awesome. Like, that's awesome. Absolutely. It's almost as a precursor to frack.
Yes,
basically.
The precursor to frack. Absolutely. And then at the end of the episode, I really liked how they had Mulder watching the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film. Like one of the most famous things in anything in cryptozoology, or even the paranormal or unexplained. Because that's a subject I don't think the X-Files ever really did any justice, is Bigfoot. They had the Jersey Devil episode, but that's not really Bigfoot. They kind of made him a caveman and all that, and I know,
and it was wild people, in the woods.
Episodes are in short supply, right? In future seasons 11, maybe anything beyond that. I would really like to see them do a Bigfoot episode. That would be awesome. Considering
of all the creatures they've touched on, that is definitely, strangely, one creature that I'm really surprised the X-Files has never really touched at all. And I would love to see a Bigfoot episode or a Sasquatch, something. That would be awesome. That would be awesome to see.
And I also love that that's what Mulder just watches late at night when he's alone. It's so Mulder. Yeah, right. That's not the equivalent of what he's doing, right?
But yeah, it's definitely one of the great, one of the best comedic, of course, episodes that they've had, and one of the best episodes, I think, overall. It breaks some of the rules that it set itself for. So, I really liked it. And then similar to Bad Blood, you kind of see like other people's interpretations of Mulder and Scully, which I always enjoy.
Her hair was red, but a little too red.
Too red, yeah. And then, like, that kid, he says that Scully threatened him. She goes, "If you say anything about this, you're a dead man." She, like, pushes him. She's like, "I did not do that." She's like, "I let him into autopsy."
But and as funny as that is, that all plays into the greater theme of the episode, which is all about perception and what you experience and how that experience translates and all that. It's like it's all so funny, but it's also layered, and that's what all the best Darren Worked episodes do. They have a theme, and even through the comedy, that theme is prevalent. So just a genius episode of masterwork, and my favorite episode of the whole series. All right, Tanya, well, if people want to find you out there on the internet, talk to you about the X-Files or anything else, where can they find you?
I am on Twitter at Amazon Agent. Also am on YouTube. I put up a couple of reviews. I actually have a couple of X-Files related reviews for some figures and the DVD box set and other video games. I'm really into video games and stuff. I also cast with a couple of friends on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/Amazon Agent, and Instagram, Amazon Agent as well on Instagram. Sometimes I post up some X-Files fun stuff up there and stuff like that. But I post other things, anything geeky, anything gamey, that's me. So you can catch me on those things.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at MooreOnZach. That's MooreOnZach. I'm also the host of my own podcast, Always Hold On to Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of that Young Superman show. You can find us on Twitter at Always Smallville with one S. And I'm also a host on the Trek FM network, where I'm the host of Standard Orbit, our original series podcast. And you can find us on Twitter at Trek FM. As for the Xcast itself, you can find us on Twitter at the X_cast. And on Facebook, you can find us at the Xcast X-Files Podcast Fan Group. Well, the podcast and I will be back tomorrow covering Avatar and Quagmire, but until then, trust no one.